Hey everyone, welcome back to my sporadic videos. What I'm working on today, and actually been working on for a couple months, I think I sort of mentioned it in an earlier video, is making some of these tips for a tattoo machine. I started off just figuring out what kind of material to use between 316 stainless and the Easy to Machine 316 stainless. Decided there really wasn't any difference for somebody working with a manual machine. It wasn't trying to budget time down to seconds to maximize profit or anything. So I went with that, and I'll show you what I have so far here. Okay, there's the lineup. These are all just blanks where I've got the back turned and then the large diameter drilled down the middle. All that's left to do on those is the small diameter inside and outside. And the reason I left that until, and the important thing, this notch that I would do on a milling machine if I had one. And the reason I have waited, I should say, is because we're experimenting with different size ID and OD. Like here you can see a couple different sized ones. And he also likes the idea of having a wall a little thicker so it won't wear through like this one did, just from that needle dragging on it for years. So what I'm going to do is, I think the best next step would be to cut all those notches. I forget what he called it, washout or something. Because the tips I'm still fine tuning, and once I get that set up, I'm not going to want to tear it all back down to cut those notches, which I'm going to have to do in a milling setup. So first thing you might have noticed from my last milling video where I just had a 3MT to a drill chuck holding my end mill, I now have a collet chuck thanks to this job. That was basically my profit, was this chuck. This is just a cheapo from CME. I'll just put the name down here. I got my 4-jaw from them, and I got the collet chuck from them. Also with the 4-jaw chuck, I had a problem where when it showed up, the box was torn open and the chuck adapter was missing, and I called them back. They were awesome. They sent a new one right out, no problem. I'm really happy with the quality, price to quality ratio. Obviously it's not a buck or a bison or something, but it's really good for the price, and I highly recommend it. Who knows what's happened to their prices now that those tariffs are in place? I know a lot of the importers have had to raise their prices 25%, and I wouldn't be surprised if they've done it. I know Grizzly and Shars has already, but still, it's a pretty good deal. I'm just going to show how I get this set up, and the first thing I want to do is eliminate this setup, which is what I did for the prototype. This is my little Sherline style milling attachment that I've customized to fit on my lathe, and I'm holding a chuck, and then I was just chucking the pieces in here. This sucks for a lot of reasons. The most obvious is rigidity. With this chuck hanging out here, I'm relying on this to not bend, these to not come loose, this to not twist, this to not move, plus all the inherent weaknesses in this compound on the 1930s Atlas. They're still making this piece out of Zamac instead of cast iron. So I'm trying to just come up with a solution that will allow me to mount those little tips pretty much right on top of the compound, because I know that they're all going to be the same height. So I don't have to have any up and down adjustability for this. So that's what I'm going to do in this video, is show how I set this up for a production job on the really, really old lathe. So stay tuned for the mayhem. Okay, so excuse the mess in the background. I've got about 1 million projects going on. Okay, so there's where the compound ends up in relation to the 1/2-inch end mill. That's about where I'm going to want it to sit. So really all I need is just a piece of something here to hold it a little bit off the compound, and that will have pretty much endless rigidity in a downward plane. So that's what I have to do. Obviously aluminum is plentiful after making that big sign I made a while back out of 1/2-inch aluminum. It wouldn't be as rigid as steel, but I think it'd be good enough. So probably what I'm going to do here, put together some aluminum, maybe a stack of couple pieces of 1/2-inch plate unless I can find a bigger piece of stock. Somehow cut a contour and integrate a clamp, and then once I get it set up I can just run them through one after another until I've done all 50 whatever. So that's the game plan. I gotta go run some errands, so I'm gonna do some brainstorming, and I will see you back here soon. Okay, I've had some time to marinate on this. I think I've got it all figured out. We'll see if my numbers turn out okay. So what I got, a chunk of aluminum. I'm going to drill a hole to fit my tool post T-nut, and that's just going to sit on the compound. And then I just want to cut a groove to fit these blanks into as tightly as possible. These are 5/16 of an inch diameter, so I would like a 5/16 inch groove cut in that piece of aluminum so it can lay in there. I do not have a 5/16 end mill, but I do have a 3/8 inch end mill which has been reground, and it is now 335, and I was looking for 3125, so it's about 20 thou over. All it has to do is just let this sit in there with as little movement as possible, and I will be clamping it down. So if I set any block of aluminum, but this one just so happens to be a little over an inch, 230 thousandths up, run my end mill through, take out that shim, set it down flat, lay this tip in that groove, I should end up at exactly the right height to run a 1/2-inch end mill through and split it roughly in half. So, clear as mud. Got my aluminum block drilled, and I came up with just the right thickness to elevate this, assuming my math is right, which is a big assumption. It's a chunk of scrap brass, a chunk of scrap aluminum, and 2 shims made from some roof flashing. So, with any luck, this will get me up to the exact height. Well, I'm within 5 thousandths, I'll take it. And the cutter is just about halfway, which is what I'd planned. So I'm going to get this dialed in so that it's perpendicular to the end mill, and I'll bring you back. Okay, I'm about to give this a shot. It's working pretty well. I'm going to speed it up though. Going top speed. Yeah, that'll hold nicely. Okay, so off camera, I drilled and tapped for 2 1/4-20 cap screws. I just took a little piece of mild steel, drilled a couple holes, so it's like a clamp to hold that down. As for where to get this positioned now to actually start making the cuts, all I could really do is kind of eyeball it. I mean, I guess I could take a measurement across and find the center, scribe that, bump up against it, calculate, but really it doesn't matter if I'm off a few thousandths either way, probably even 10 or 20 thousandths either way. So I just kind of looked down like I was sighting down the barrel of a gun and just kind of eyeballed. So I think I should be pretty close, but the first step is going to be to actually cut through the aluminum and get up to here. This is the original. I don't want to cut into it, but I do want to at least get up there and determine if I'm in the right spot, you know, front to back. And then I could maybe actually cut one for the first time. Here we go, fingers crossed. Man, I think I just about nailed that. So I'm going to put a blank in there and see if I can actually do a good cut. Okay. Experiment 1 failed. Okay, I slowed down my speed a little bit since I am cutting stainless now instead of aluminum. Tightened that down a little more. You know, in retrospect, I probably should have come from the other direction, because since it's turning this way, it's actually trying to pull it out. And ideally, I should have it, when it turns, pushing against the stop. So that's just something I didn't think of. I was more thinking rigidity, that if the carriage was in the middle here, it'd be better than if it was way out at the end. But I only got to get through 50 of these. I broke something. I'm hoping it wasn't the end mill. End mill looks fine. Well, there's the original one, and the one I just cut. This one is a bit deeper, but proof of concept. I think this is working. I think that's it for tonight. Hey, welcome back. It's been a few days, but here we are. I'm gonna wrap up this little project. I'm gonna turn around and show you what I've done, because I made a few changes from the last video, and I didn't do it on camera because it was largely what you already saw me do, just slightly different. So, turn you around and show you what we've got going on. Okay, here's the setup. This is the notch you saw me make and use before. And if you remember, it was a little too high, which meant the end mill was a little too low, and therefore was making the sideways hole too deep. So I decided to cut a new slot, and I intentionally did it too deep so that I could then shim it back up to where I needed. So I just kind of have a pile of shims here. And that way I was able to tweak it to exactly the right depth. And also, my complaint with the first one, if you remember me mentioning, was that I had the end mill, when it was spinning, it was trying to shoot the part out. Well, now I have it so when it's spinning, it's pushing it in tight against the stop. So this is my pile of pieces, and they all need that notch. I'm going to set up the camera so you can watch me cut a couple of these to see how it goes. But that's basically going to be it for this video. I mostly just wanted to show how I made this jig and set it up, and hopefully give some people some ideas. If you have a lathe and no mill and no milling attachment, as I'm not about to spend $400 on the original factory Atlas one, there are ways around it if you just kind of think it through. So let's see it in action. Another nice part of this setup is I noticed that the notch, compared to the original, just a tiny bit too far forward. So all I have to do to adjust that is I can just dial the compound in, or not the compound, the cross slide in a little bit, and that moves it. No, that moves it the wrong way. I meant come out. But anyway, it comes out and it just moves the hole back a little bit. So it's really easy to adjust that way. Alright, I'm about to cut the last one, and as many of you will know if you've ever done little mini production runs, or even big ones I suppose, the farther you get into the job, the more you just kind of get everything more efficient and moving quickly. So I just wanted to show what I got the speed down for the very last one here. And I blow it off. and then I would blow off the jig for inserting the next one, but I'm not going to do that now because my phone is right next to it. There you go. They're all cut. Okay, that's going to do it for that video. Again, it's one of those where I know nobody's going to sit down and do exactly what I just did, but I'm hoping I can save some people some headache or maybe get people thinking about things a little differently. If you can't afford the right tool, sometimes you can make it, and that's what I did here. I did want to talk about the end mill I used. It's from CME, the same place I got this collet chuck from, and I was talking about how I was really pleased with it for the money. I got no complaints about this end mill either. Obviously in a production environment, you're going to want to stick with one of the big American manufacturers, but if you're just screwing around in your shop like me, you know, the difference between like a $5 and a $30 end mill is kind of a big deal. This one, I mean, yeah, these are small little parts, but this is 316 stainless. It's, you know, pretty hard. Here's what I used, and I'll have the part number at the bottom of the screen here. I'm not sure what the price was, and again, after the tariffs, they've probably gone up because they're imports. But I got no complaints. The last one cut just as well as the first one did. I ordered 2 of these just in case, didn't even open the other one. So again, props to CME, my forge job, my collet chuck, and all this dinky little tooling stuff I bought. Couldn't be happier. So this is not a commercial for them, by the way. If it was, it'd be a really big waste of money for them because nobody watches my videos except for, I don't know, tens of viewers at this point. Maybe someday. So that's it. I will catch you in the next one. I got plenty of stuff coming up, but for now I'm happy to have that done so I can take my jig apart. Catch you later.